C.M.I. got its start in Oklahoma City about 18 years ago. Their main business then was the construction of sophisticated, automated road-building equipment. That was during the boom of the interstate highway system. Now they concentrate on equipment that maintains the highways, and recently they got into oil pump production. But recession in the construction industry and a slowdown in drilling set C.M.I. back during the first quarter of 1982 to the tune of $2.5 million. Despite the slowdown, company chairman Bill Swisher isn't worried about the future of the company he founded.
It's been through a lot of good and bad times, and I guess we can weather any kind that come along.
Swisher says this is just a temporary slump. He expects the oil industry to get going again now the warm weather has arrived. C.M.I. has laid off about 500 employees, but they still have a payroll of about $17 million a year. As the year progresses, officials say they expect C.M.I. to be stronger than ever. Ted Brown, Action 4 at the C.M.I. plant.
This pole that has been hit by the car has an underground secondary riser on it and a transformer up there. Be the best if that crew foreman from Post Road just comes out here and takes a look.
One look at the pole told crews it was going to be a long night. The main power feed line had been broken in two by a reckless driver. When it snapped, power was lost from the northwest side of Midwest City to Hera, some 18 miles away. Police had no problem determining why the pole was hit.
He was traveling on the 400 block of North Air Depot, and he had excessive speed according to witnesses and by physical evidence, probably 65 to 70 miles an hour when he struck the west curb of the north side, causing his left front tire to blow out and veer off 125 feet, strike a utility pole.
The car hit the pole so hard that it split the vehicle in two. Somehow the driver got out unharmed and ran from the scene, but police found him in a nearby apartment complex. He was charged with driving with excessive speed. So thousands spent the night truly in the dark, except for the glow of candles. For drivers in the area, streets were dark, and one street, Air Depot, was closed. It was here that the accident happened. OG&E officials hope that by morning rush hour, these signs won't be necessary. And there's a good chance that they won't, because even if they can't replace a pole during the night, they can temporarily fix it so that the streets can be open and the power can be on. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Midwest City.
This is the Oklahoma City Council in action, except these council members only have the title for a day. It's all part of Youth and Citizenship Day, when young people can play the role of a city official with whom they also spend the day with. The program is to help give these teenagers a better idea of what really goes on in city government. Their agenda included a hot debate on banning glass containers from public parks.
The judge will look at this and declare it discriminatory, as it is singling out a single industry. And you are blaming the industry for the problem of the people. And again, let me bring up that this comes under an educational process.
Douglas High School's Jacqueline Adams was the student mayor and talks about the experience.
Well, I learned that it can be a very tough job and very hard because you have a lot of people who get out of line in court and everything. Well, in council meetings and different things.
After being in that position, what do you think is the best way to handle problems like you had down there with the glass ordinance?
I'm not really sure. You just have to be careful of what you say and then just tell the people that, when they're out of line to stay in line and everything, because you just have to have patience, I guess.
For months now, the real Oklahoma City Council has also been considering banning glass containers in parks. Youth council members did something that seems to elude the adult council. That is, they actually voted on the matter without deferring it for weeks. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at City Hall.
The trouble began shortly after 3 o'clock when a utility company, backhoe, bit into a cross-country pipeline. A white cloud of liquefied propane, butane, and ethane gas quickly formed, threatening several nearby farmhouses. There was nothing the fire department could do except to evacuate nearby residents and wait for repair crews to shut off the gas.
Well, as soon as we get it evacuated, I'll leave some people out here, and I got to...
Irvin Williams was working in his nearby pasture when the pipeline ruptured. He says the blast sounded like a tanker truck exploding. Fortunately, no one was injured in the mishap. By 8 o'clock, residents were allowed back in their homes and repairmen began plugging the break. Those repairs should be completed within the next few hours. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Southwest Oklahoma City.
Learning how to drive is still probably one of the most important events in a teenager's life. About 120 Oklahoma City public high school students are not only being taught the rules of the road, but also have a chance to be paid for learning. Driver education teachers entered some of their best students in the competition that will award the top 21 boy drivers and the top 21 girls. The prizes will come in the form of savings bonds. Knowing money was at stake, the drivers did their very best to avoid running over pylons. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City. When most police officers join the force, they expect at some time to be promoted to a higher rank. The only thing is there is no clear way to ensure that an officer is on the right track toward being promoted. Even those who get promotions are sometimes not sure how they achieve them over so many other people. The Fraternal Order of Police says the promotion system does not always thoroughly evaluate officers.
The biggest problem with the system now is that nobody understands what it takes and why I will be considered or why this person will be considered for promotion. You wouldn't hire somebody for a advancement to a position without actually talking to him. Well, our guys don't think they're getting the benefit of that one-on-one stuff. Maybe that's one of the answers.
Promotions here within this department are highly competitive. We have a lot of people on a promotional list. And we'd like to design a system so that everybody can get on the list.
The FOP and the city have pledged to work together on a new promotion system. It won't be easy, but it has to be and will be done. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
Not many class reunions are held in an atmosphere as impressive as this. The Masonic Temple in Guthrie, Oklahoma houses groups of men like this 3 times a year. But today's group is special. They're not just renewing old acquaintances, they're making new ones. Around 125 high school students and their families were there as annual scholarship recipients. The mystic grandeur of the temple reaffirms the generous impression the students have of the Masons. For most of them, this is their first connection with the group.
They have the ability for certain fields and do not have the funds to go to school. And we want to help those particular people.
The Masons began helping students enter the halls of learning nearly 20 years ago. The scholarships cover the first semester's tuition and a little spending money. After that, if the students still qualify, the Masons loan the money at a 3% annual interest rate. They consider it a sound investment. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in Guthrie, Oklahoma.
For more than 2 days now, a gas well in western Canadian County has continued to burn like a huge ball of fire in the sky. Though it looks and sounds ferocious, officials at the site say it's under control and that no one is in immediate danger. Owned by the Tenneco Company, crews will begin snubbing the pipe within the next few days and then fill it with heavy mud to halt the flow of the gas and in turn extinguish the blaze. The gas blowout is still quite a show to spectators in the area. Earlier this evening, dozens of people parked along the side street that runs by the well to gaze at the unusual sight. To the kids, it was certainly a different kind of Saturday outing. Some adults are using the fiery blaze to challenge their skills at photography.
Well, my husband's in the oil business. He has a well going, close by. He knew the well was blowing out, and he wanted to see it. And I'm a photography student, so I wanted to see if I could take the pictures.
Blowouts such as this one are unfortunate, but they do occur in the high-risk oil and gas industry. Tenneco hasn't reached a final estimate for their total damages, but they do know the financial loss will be heavy. Still yet, the company remains thankful that no one was injured in this one. Carol Lambert, Action 4 in Far West Canadian County.
Things seem to be going pretty well in Guthrie, but don't let appearances fool you. Guthrie has a problem, a big problem. The town doesn't have enough clean water. There's plenty of water in Cottonwood Creek, but people here say it's polluted by an Oklahoma City treatment plant. Some days the water is okay, but other days it's just disgusting. City Manager Paul Bunt says Guthrie hasn't gotten water from the creek for the last 3 years. There's already some water rationing in Guthrie, and Bunt says if the city doesn't get more rain, rationing will be even stricter.
And eventually possibly completely banning any outdoor use of water, any watering of any trees, gardens, shrubs, etc., and just limiting it to personal use, personal hygiene, and personal consumption.
Liberty Lake is a main reservoir for Guthrie. The town's drilling 6 new water wells, but they won't be ready until the fall. So the water in Liberty Lake has to last through the summer. The best hope for Guthrie is that those clouds over the lake will become rain clouds. Bill Ross, Action 4 in Guthrie.
The restaurant people particularly were, their most conservative estimate of what would happen to beef imports over there is that they would double just immediately. And those estimates, they're just individuals in the restaurant trade, but they know that if they can get that price down nearer the world level price for beef through their outlets, some of them thought it would quadruple. One man said it would be 10 times. And so I think for beef, it would expand a great deal. Some of the commodities that we're sending them, for soybeans, for instance, we have the lion's share of that market, and they're probably buying all the soybeans they want. So maybe that wouldn't expand too much. Feed grains, if they get efficient in their agricultural operations over there, they could import more feed grains and do more feeding over there.
The Oklahoma City Council voted to convert an old school building into a refuge for battered women and their children. Council members denied an earlier request for a shelter after a neighborhood protest. But organizers of the shelter say too many battered victims are being turned away, and housing was desperately needed. City leaders decided on a neighborhood that pleased everyone involved. The director of the shelter says many people have the wrong idea of what the shelter is really all about.
I can understand their fear. I mean, I really can. But yet, you know, I know for a fact, because I've been here since the day we started. And if anything was going to happen, I feel that, you know, the pimps know where we're at down here by the bus station, and the alcoholics, and we have not had 1 minute's trouble out of them whatsoever. They know, I mean, you know, they've known me for a long time because I was raised down here. And so a lot of them know that I've changed, and they know that I won't put up with it, you know. And I have never really had any traumatic, you know, experiences with any husbands whatsoever.
The new shelter will be able to accommodate 60 women and children. It will need a lot of work in order to make the place more livable, but nobody seems to mind. This will be the new home for battered women and their children starting next month. Its location must remain anonymous for the protection of those people who are going to have to live here. While it's true the battered women needs more room, but the children also need more room, more playing room. And for the first time, they'll have their own playground and own playground equipment. Organizers of the shelter hope this type of environment will ease the pain of battered women and their children. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Southeast Oklahoma City.
On Tuesday, the Conservative Coalition began their blockade on appropriations measures. It could leave some state agencies without funds for several months. The coalition is trying to force a compromise on state tax cuts.
That this is not a partisan issue, that we intend to continue turning down all appropriations emergency clauses until we get some movement on this tax cut.
On the second day of the blockade, the House leadership wouldn't even bring appropriations to a vote. But the Republicans and the few maverick Democrats picked up the sympathy of Governor George Nigh.
I can't disagree with their point because it is supportive of my position, and therefore I appreciate it. I will continue to try to work for tax cuts through the normal way that, as governor, I feel I should work.
But sympathy was not on the minds of Senate Democrats. The senators went into caucus to reevaluate their feelings that tax cuts were not an economically sound idea. Their faces were grim when they left the caucus meeting. They were preparing for a fight.
Our position at this point is that the Senate does not intend to be held hostage by the actions of the House. I'm simply saying that the issues that were raised by the recent irresponsible acts on the part of the members of the House of Representatives who determined that they will kill the appropriations bills is a matter that another one of the problems of this session of the legislature that has to be resolved, and we are determined to do that.
Other legislative leaders agree. They want the issues resolved, but they don't want a minority to dictate state policy. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the state capitol.
All right. Get a shot of the
that you would have to float a foundation and go very deep and keep pumps there.
These cattlemen at the Oklahoma National Stockyards would like to send more beef to Japan. But because of certain trade barriers, they can't. U.S. officials hope to change this by eliminating the differences.
This is a big project that we're working on now, Ben, through the United States Meat Export Federation. We're especially trying to get more of our grain-fed beef into the Japanese market because the Japanese have a desire for that grain-fed beef.
Talks on widening beef imports to Japan are scheduled this fall. At the present time, the executive director of the Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association says we only export about 1% of our beef.
We've experienced in the last 8 years, Ben, only 2 years of profit in the cattle producing and feeding industry, and we can produce 120 pounds per capita here, but it's at a loss to our industry.
Oklahoma cattlemen are hoping the United States will get a bigger share of that Japanese market. And if we do get that bigger share, they hope the increased demand will improve cattle prices. Ben McCain, Action 4, at the Oklahoma National Stockyards.
Most of the time when people think about aerobic dance, they think of young, agile bodies stepping off any extra pounds and firming up their muscles to the beat of another drum and other accompaniment. But this is the story about another group, not exactly young, independent spirit pioneers, but women who want to change the image of aerobic dance just the same.
Okay, you all.
Many of these women are in their 60s. They've always had active lives, but life has slowed down a little, and their exercises have been altered to match that. It's giving them a new confidence, and it's changing their lives.
I was having trouble sleeping at night due to depression, and I began, and after the first 1 or 2 times, I just could relax totally. It's just done wonders for me.
Well, what I think you want to do is to be able to do to your potential and feel good about it, and this helps you to do that.
We're way up there, but we keep ourselves in shape so that we can keep going.
Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
We just want a fair hearing for them. We just think it's kind of bad that 6 people's whole careers and lives can be flushed, as you may, for in one vote. I understand that the vote at the Moore School Board is simply a vote to dismiss. It's not a vote to consider, a vote to find out more about it, but simply a vote to dismiss these people.
This little baby was born 2 months early and weighs only 3.5 pounds. She is a high risk for hearing problems. Up until now, doctors had to wait until the child was much older before they could determine if it had hearing problems. But now, through the use of electrodes and a special computer, doctors can tell right away if something's wrong. A headset, in this case almost bigger than the baby, is placed over its ears. A series of clicking noises are emitted. A computer measures the brain waves to see if the brain is recording sound. If it is not, the computer would record a straight line. The good news here is this baby can hear. There will be more tests that can aid in early detection of other hearing problems, and doctors say it is a revolutionary development.
The identification of a significant hearing problem might be delayed until the baby was older. And this technique, which allows us to identify very early in life, gives us the opportunity of providing very early treatment for the child rather than perhaps having it delayed.
The procedure Dr. Dennis talked about is the only one that can accurately measure the hearing of a newborn, and it was pioneered at Children's Hospital. It is important because a baby will be able to learn speech and language from what it hears. And after today's tests, 3-week-old Kimberly Adams has a good start. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at Children's Hospital.
Members of the legislature and the task force that examined county government in the wake of the county commissioner scandal joined Governor Nigh for the signing of the county purchasing bill. Nigh said the bill was one of the most important pieces of legislation passed since he's been governor.
This is the bill that, in my opinion, is the keystone to all of those pieces of legislation that we've had concerning county government this session.
190 suppliers and commissioners, like this one, have been convicted for giving or accepting kickbacks. The new law is supposed to preserve the strength of local government, while at the same time reducing the possibility of abuse. The bill creates the position of county purchasing agent in the county clerk's office, requires an engineer from the Department of Transportation to be designated as county road and bridge inventory officer, provides for new procedures to document purchases and receipts of all materials acquired, and calls for new employees to be designated as receiving agents to accept materials for the county. But not everyone is sure the new law ends Oklahoma's problems.
So I really cannot say that the legislation will stop either the kickbacks or the 50-50 splits, though it is probably somewhat of an improvement over what we have presently.
Price says unless we're careful, a new scandal might be only 5 years away. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
All right, we're going to feature Nashville, Tennessee, Miss Bonnie Nelson.
Professional entertainer Bonnie Nelson has found it rewarding performing for correctional institutions across the country. Her stop in El Reno tonight was no different. She found her audience most receptive and appreciative. For the inmates, tonight's social gathering was one of their few links with the outside world.
2 or 3 times a year we'll ask an outside group such as this to come in to provide them with an opportunity to participate in a lot of the social activities that go on the outside. The whole thrust is to try to normalize the environment as much as we can, make it as close to the outside community as we can.
Yeah, Bonnie Nelson.
Bonnie's first performance at a federal prison was in Leavenworth, Kansas. The response to her vivacious show was so great, she received over 200 letters from the inmates. She, in turn, answered every one of them. Bonnie and her band, the Stateside Express, volunteer their talents to what they consider a worthwhile mission. While a concert like this may not seem so special to some folks, to those on the inside, it's that one touch with reality that keeps them going. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the El Reno Federal Prison.
I spend probably at least 30% of my time investigating, prosecuting narcotics cases because I feel like that's the real cancer that's destroying our society. I think that I know that narcotics is responsible for bringing organized crime into Oklahoma County, and as long as it thrives at the level that it is, we're going to have organized crime. With this young staff and the cooperation of the other agencies, I'm hopeful that in the next 4 years we can attain my dream of making this the safest county in the United States.